Hello everybody, welcome to lesson number 2 of Healing Our Spirits, Reconnecting Through Music. Welcome everybody, I'm so happy you're joining me today for the second fiddle lesson of our fiddle program this fall. So last week we learned a lot about the fiddle itself, and I just wanted to remind you that for this lesson, just like last week, you'll need your fiddle, you'll need your bow, you'll need the rosin, which I'll show you a bunch about today. And also, if you decided that you were comfortable using a sponge, make sure you install your sponge on your fiddle, or even if you want to use the cloth. So just get all of that stuff nice and ready for today's lesson. The other things that you'll need for today's lesson are a nail file, and I'll show you why we need that a little bit later on. And make sure, of course, that your fingernails are nice and short for today's lesson. The other thing I'll ask you to have on hand is a pencil, and I'll show you a little bit more about that later as well. So last week we did do a little bit of a warm-up. So we're going to do a warm-up every week before we start in with the lesson. So today let's start with a little bit of warming up our hands by rubbing them together and just getting a lot of kind of energy in our hands. Are you feeling a warm sensation on your hands? This should feel really nice. And now that we have some warmth in our hands, why don't we start warming up our fingers? We did this last time. We put them out to the sides. We can put them up towards the roof or the sky or the sun. I don't know if it's sunny for you today. And down towards the ground, just warming up our fingers. And now let's start to shake it out, shake it out. And just a reminder, when you're holding your fiddle and you're holding your bow, sometimes you might feel a little bit stiff because you're concentrating so much. Just take a break if you're feeling any stiffness and just shake it all out, shake it all out. Shake it down, shake it to the sides, shake it to the front. Turn all around, shake it up to the sky. Awesome. Awesome. Now let's kind of just do a little bit of some windmills with our arms here today. Get our arms nice and warmed up. And we've got our shoulders are going to get nice and warmed up too. Because remember from last week, we have to rest our fiddle on our shoulders. So we want our shoulder to feel nice and relaxed as we're playing our fiddle today. Awesome. Awesome job. And now I'm just going to roll my shoulders just by themselves for a second. I'm rolling them backward. And now I'm going to roll them forward. Ooh, that feels good. Awesome. And maybe we'll go with our head and just stretch our head lightly to the side. As you know, when you hold the fiddle, you don't want your head to be too much over to the side, but it does have to do a little bit of movement to the side just to be able to hold the fiddle, to have your chin and your jawbone on the chin rest. So it's good to kind of warm up your neck a little bit as well. So hopefully that feels good. Let's do one last thing, and those are some nice deep breaths together. So let's inhale together and exhale. So that's breathing in and breathing out. And breathe in and breathe out. Awesome. All right, we're ready to get started. So next, we're going to do a bit of a review of what we learned last week. So first, why don't we take a look at our fiddle, and we're just going to look at the different parts. I know last time you took the time to do a drawing of the fiddle, which is fantastic. So let me ask you, do you remember what this part of the fiddle is called? There are 4 of these. Can you tell me what that's called? It's called the tuning pegs. All right, what about this part here, this large area. Do you remember what this part of the fiddle is called? It's called the body. Okay, awesome. Hopefully some of these you'll remember. If you forget, it's okay. That's why we're looking at this again this week. Okay, and then we have this long black piece, which our fingers are going to be touching when we start playing different notes with our fingers. And this is called the fingerboard. Hopefully you remembered that one. All right, so we have the body, we have the fingerboard, we have the tuning pegs. Okay, who remembers this part here? This kind of, it looks a little bit like a snail, doesn't it? So this part is called the scroll. And then we have, how many strings does the fiddle have? Who can remember that? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Really important to remember those 4 strings. We also have this part here, which is called the neck, just like our neck. We got the neck and of course the body. So the neck's just right on top here of the body. What else did we learn last week? Oh yeah, this one here, this is important. It's usually a lighter piece of wood, Oh, there's another angle you can see it at. This is called the bridge. We've got all 4 strings on top of the bridge. We've got this part here, it's called I'm wondering if you'll remember from last time. This was called the tail piece. So you can imagine it's kind of like the tail of an animal towards the bottom of the body. And we have this part here, which is very important. This is where our chin gets to rest. So what is it called? It's called the chin rest. Awesome. We've got the end pin here. It kind of looks like a button. It's holding the tail piece into place. And we've got these small little knobs here called fine tuners. And I think that's everything we learned last week. So you've got a lot of different parts of the fiddle. It's okay if you don't remember, but I just wanted to review it just so we can start to kind of really get to know all the different parts. Okay, so last week we learned how to hold the fiddle. So I want to review that a little bit as well today. So let's do this together. Could you please, with your left hand, hold the body of your fiddle right by the fingerboard and the neck and stretch your arm out like this. So you have it right in front of you. And you're going to gently turn it up and just be careful when you do this. And we're going to bring it onto our left shoulder. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and face you again. So just a reminder that we want it to be on a little bit of an angle here. So it's not going to be completely out to the side. And it's not going to be completely in front of us either. So it's going to be like this. It's going to be fairly flat as well. It's not 100% flat because there's a little bit of an angle here on our body. So it's going to be angled just a little bit. But for the most part, the strings are kind of pointing up towards the sky. And that's what we want. All right, so this is something you learned last week. So let's just do this one more time. So bring your fiddle down. Hold it out in front of you, bring it up onto your left shoulder, and make sure you have it at a nice angle there. Now I'm going to invite you to place your chin, and it might be a little bit of the side of your jawbone here at the bottom of your cheek onto the chin rest. And hopefully that feels good. Now, I challenged you last week to do this every day just to try to get comfortable. And I also challenged you to see if you could remove your hand and if you were able to hold the fiddle without having to support it with your hand. Now this is a big challenge and you might not be able to do it right away. Just be patient with yourself and be careful also, because if the fiddle starts to slip, of course you want to try to catch it with your hands. We do not want the fiddle to fall to the ground because something could break. Okay, so once you're nice and comfortable here, let's do a bit of a review. Do you remember we did like our thumbs up to the air? So let's do our thumbs up. Place our thumb on the corner here of the fingerboard, right at the edge. And we're going to do a little bit of plucking. So finger up into the air. And I want to let's do 3 plucks on each string, starting with E. 1, 2, 3. Next, let's do A. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Let's do D. 1, 2, 3. And the lowest string now, let's do G. 1, 2, 3. All right, let's do one other little warm-up challenge with our plucking today. So this time, we're going to start on the lowest string. What's the deep lowest string called? Did you say G? If you said G, you are correct. So let's try. Going ahead, thumbs up, place it here on the corner of the fingerboard, and we're going to do 7 on each string. I know this is going to be a little hard, but let's give this a try. Starting with the lowest string, G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Awesome. Let's go to the next string that's right beside G. This one is called, do you know the name? It's called D. Let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Awesome. Really good. All right. Thumbs up right here. And we're going to go to the next string beside D. It's actually in between D, which we just played, and the smallest string. It's called the A string. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Awesome. And now we go to the smallest string. It's called E. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Amazing job. Okay, we are done our review of last week's lesson. So I think it's time now to learn something brand new. So next, I want to introduce you to the different parts of the bow. So we're going to learn some words today to describe the different parts of this part of our fiddle instrument. So this whole thing all together is called the bow. And we're going to be using it to produce sound on the fiddle. And the way that's going to work is we're going to actually have the hair of the bow touch the strings of the fiddle. And I'll show you all about that once we get all set up and all comfortable with the different parts of our instrument. So on the bow, we have the hair. We also have a piece of wood. And actually, this piece of wood here is called the stick, believe it or not. So that's pretty easy to remember. Then this area here of the bow is called the tip of the bow. I think that's pretty easy to remember too. So we've got the hair, we've got the stick, we've got the tip. Now I really love the name of this area here. This area here is called the frog, believe it or not. It's called the frog. And at the tip of the frog or the bottom of the frog, you'll actually notice a little piece of metal. Now, this is called the screw, and we'll be using the screw right away, okay? So when you remove your bow from the case, you'll notice that the hair is very loose. It's not very tight, and it's probably just gently touching the stick. So the wooden part and the hair part are probably very close together. And the screw, and this is where you're going to need a little bit of help from an adult, at least for the first time. You're going to want to tighten the screw. So you're going to turn the screw. And what happens when you turn the screw is you'll notice, if you take a look at the hair will start to get a little bit tighter. So it might take about, 4 to 6 times of tightening the screw, kind of a halfway circle, for you to start noticing a difference in the tension or the tightness of the hair of your bow. And I want you to take a look now at my bow. You probably notice that there's a distance now, there's a gap between the stick part and the hair part. It's a pretty thin gap, but you could imagine that maybe your pinky finger could fit in between. We're not going to do that because we don't want to actually touch the hair of the bow. But if you can see that is about how much of a distance you want there, and that's how tight you want to have your bow. One really important thing to keep in mind is you don't want to over tighten your bow. So if you look at my bow right now, maybe I'll hold it above me, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a curve. It curves downwards. So in other words, it curves a little bit like a cradle would curve. Not a lot, but a little bit. And we want to make sure it stays that way, okay? because if it goes totally straight or if it curves upwards, that means you've tightened your bow way too much. And what could happen is the wood could start to warp or change shape, and we don't want that to happen. We want to keep a nice curve in the bow. So before you play, you will have to tighten your bow, just as we just did. But after you finish playing, you always want to loosen your bow. So you'll turn the screw in the opposite direction. And you'll turn it maybe 3, maybe 4 times, and you'll notice that the hair of the bow is now very, very close to the stick of the bow. I don't know if you can see a difference there. And the reason that we loosen the bow hair before we put the bow away in the case is just to relieve the stick of any tension. We don't want to keep any tension on the stick if we don't have to. So we're only going to keep the tension when we're playing. So let's try that again. So right now my bow hair is loose. You can see in the middle of the bow, it looks like the hair and the wood of the bow or the stick are touching. And now I'm going to tighten it. So I'm going to turn it maybe 4, 5, maybe 6 times. Little turns until it looks kind of like this. So now you see there's a gap in between the stick and the hair parts of the bow, which is really, really important. So see if you can get comfortable with that. So a reminder, before you play, you tighten it. And after you play, when you're putting your instrument away, when you put the fiddle away, make sure you loosen the screw so that the hair is nice and loose on your bow. So that's really important. Okay, the next very important thing has to do with the rosin. I was talking about rosin earlier when we explored what was in your case. So rosin actually comes from tree sap from pine or coniferous trees, which is kind of cool. And it's hard, but it's actually not that hard. It actually produces a nice little powder, which we're going to go ahead and use on the hair of our bow. So earlier in today's lesson, I mentioned you might want to grab a nail file. So I was talking about how your nails have to stay nice and short, but one other thing you could use the nail file for is just to get your rosin going, because a brand new rosin which you received in your case might be take a little while to get to the nice kind of powdery texture that we want. So you can use the nail file and just gently, and this might be good to have an adult around to do this, gently use the file on the top part of your rosin. And you might notice a little bit of changing in color, and that's okay. You probably see a little bit of kind of a more white or beigey color, and that means the powder is starting to form on the top of the rosin, which is awesome. So the next thing you're going to have to do is start to apply the rosin to the hair of the bow. So let me show you how I do that. You're going to start near the frog and just go back and forth in a short kind of rubbing motion near the frog of the bow. And again, this is directly onto the hair. And you're going to make your way up. So we're going to spend a couple of minutes doing this because with brand new horsehair on your bow, did I mention that, by the way? Your hair on your bow is from a horse's tail. They give the horse a haircut and use it to make the hair on the bow. So I don't know if you noticed, but I'm still kind of just gently rubbing on the horsehair, but I'm getting a little bit further away from the frog as I go and getting a little closer to the tip of the bow. So I hope you're doing this with me today. We're going to be doing this for about 5 minutes, 5 whole minutes. All the way up, all the way up towards the tip of the bow. And you should notice that the hair on your bow is starting to get a little bit of powder on it. And because the powder is white, it might look a little bit more white on the hair of the bow. So now I've gone from the frog all the way to the tip. one time, but you're going to have to do that maybe 3 or 4 times today. And one other thing you can do, just kind of for the fun of it, is you can go from the frog all the way up to the tip and back. You can do that a few times. So this takes a lot of patience the first time. So this is the first time you're ever playing. So you need to put a lot of rosin on the hair of the bow to make a sound. After this, after today, when you play, when you take your bow out of your case, you're going to want to tighten the screw. And then you're going to want to put rosin on for maybe count to maybe about 30 seconds. 30 seconds of putting rosin on your bow. So that will really help you to make a good sound when you're playing, a nice clean sound. If you notice there's a little bit of problems when you're playing, that might mean you need a little bit more rosin. So today, definitely take up to 5 minutes of putting rosin on your bow, so you need to get a lot on there for the very first time. So hopefully that makes sense. And don't forget, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but if you have any questions for me that I don't answer in today's lesson, make sure to remember them, because we're going to be meeting live on Zoom every 2 weeks for myself and for the other teacher, Alicia, who's teaching the adult lessons, to answer questions about the fiddle, the bow, how to play, how to take care of the instrument. So if you have any questions that I don't answer in the video, you can make sure to ask me when we meet in person. So now you know all about the bow. We've got the tip, we've got the frog, we've got the screw, we've got the hair, and we've got the stick. And of course, it's not part of the bow, but we need it every time we play. We've got our rosin. So now that you know all the parts of the bow, we're going to get started with learning how to hold the bow. First, just to make things a little bit easier, you can put your bow down in a safe spot. And I want you to grab that pencil I mentioned that we'd be using in today's lesson. We're just going to use it as kind of a pretend bow, okay? And the pencil is nice and light, and it's kind of short, so it's a little bit easier to handle. So I'm going to invite you to take your right hand, okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to go like this. Put your pinky finger and your index finger, your pointer finger up in the air. And with the rest of your fingers, I want you to make a little bit of a circle. And this is your bunny. Can you open and close the bunny's mouth? Open, close, open, close. Awesome. Really good. Okay, you can get it to hop around as well. So I like to think about when I hold the bow, I like to imagine that there's like a little bunny. So let's pretend this pencil here is the stick of the wood. So let's go ahead once again, and we're going to create the bunny shape with our hand, with our right hand. And let's pretend that the bunny is getting a little bit hungry. Hop, 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 and open the bunny's mouth and close the bunny's mouth right on the pencil. Do you see that? Now the bunny is holding the pencil in its mouth. Hop, 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 hop. Now the bunny has hopped around all day, and the bunny got the pencil, so the bunny is now feeling a little bit tired. And this is what we're going to do. Remember the 2 bunny ears we have sticking up here? Can we just let the bunny ears go to sleep? So I'm putting one down, and I'm going to put the other one down. And now the bunny is sleeping with the pencil in its mouth. You just got to use your imagination for this one, but it's kind of fun. So this is a way to kind of remember how to hold the bow. So try practicing a little bit with the pencil. See if you can just walk around the room. Pretend you've got your bunny and you're hopping around, and then all of a sudden, oh, you see a pencil. Okay, now the bunny, it's getting kind of hungry. So go ahead and open the bunny's mouth and close it right on the pencil. Now hop, hop, hop around. And you notice the bunny's ears are in the air, and the bunny is hopping all around the room. And then all of a sudden the bunny starts to get tired. So let's get those ears to come down. Sleepy, sleepy bunny. Sleepy bunny. And now you're just holding the pencil like this. The bunny is nice and tired. Done hopping for the day, and is going to be resting. All right, so that's a little warm-up you can do using the pencil. And you can do this every day when you're practicing this week. And once you get a little bit comfortable with this, we're going to move on to holding the bow. So glad your bow is all rosined up and ready to go. Make sure you have tightened your bow. And I'm going to invite you to hold the stick of the bow with your left hand. Typically, your left hand would be holding the fiddle. So we're going to just use it to help us out with our bunny. So can you please do your bunny again? Yeah, a bunny hop, hop, hopping around. Hop, hop, hopping around. And this time, the bunny doesn't see a pencil. The bunny sees the bow. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open the bunny's mouth. And we're going to have the mouth come right around where the frog is here. I don't know if you can see that. Right around where the frog is. And we have the thumb, your thumb, is going to go right here. Let's see if you can see. Right here. So if you've got the stick of the bow, you're going to have the bottom of the bunny's mouth just below the stick. And you keep your thumb nice and bent. And it's just resting like this onto the side of the hair of the bow there. And then you've got the mouth. It's just wrapping around a little bit towards the front. Now you won't be able to touch your thumb, but it will almost look like they're touching. So close. So do you see that? So try that again. Hop, hop, hop around. Open the bunny's mouth and place the bottom of the mouth here. There's a little bit of a space for it right here. There we go. There it is. And then we've got the mouth of the bunny is going to close. And then remember, we've got the 2 ears of the bunny. So you can pretend to be hopping around, hopping around, hopping around. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have the 2 ears come down. Let's start with this ear here. We're going to rest it here. It's going to come on the silver part, just touching just lightly on the silver part of the bow. Okay? Notice how they're just curled a little bit over the stick part. So they're not resting on the top. They're all just curled a little bit over. Okay? Now this will take some time. It'll be a little bit tricky to do for a while. You could definitely ask an adult to help you along with this. Okay, now the last ear, the little bunny ear is your pinky finger. This one is going to rest right on top of the frog here. And I don't know if you can see, but it's just right above where the little dot is. So the little dot kind of shows you where your pinky can rest on the top of the bow. Do you see that? How does that feel? Does that feel weird? It might feel a little bit weird at first, and that's okay. You're doing awesome. All right, if you need to, you can kind of shake out your right arm. It's working so hard to hold the bow. We're going to try this one more time. So if you could please make your little bunny. Make sure those ears are pointed up towards the sky. It's hopping, hopping, hopping. And it's going to open its mouth. And the thumb's going to go right here, just below the stick. And the top of the mouth is just going to curl around just a little bit, just over here. And then we're going to have 2 tired bunny ears come down. The first one will come down right about where the silver is, and the other one will come curling right on the top of the bow there. And this one has to do some muscular work. It is definitely supporting the bow. So now, if you feel comfortable enough, see if you can hold the bow with only your right hand. Okay, this is hard to do. Now let me give you another challenge because you're doing so well today. So once you feel comfortable holding it like this, I'm going to invite you to do something called the windshield wipers. Look at this. Windshield wipers. So keeping the bow nice and steady, holding onto the bow. Imagine you're in the car and it's a rainy day and the person driving says, well, there's so much rain coming to the front of the car. We need to put the windshield wipers on to wipe the rain away. And you can start out nice and slow And if you feel comfortable, you can go a little bit faster, but you don't have to go very fast. This is just a practice. And you will feel that your muscles in your fingers are working hard to really hold on to the bow. And it'll get a little easier once we start using the fiddle too, because the fiddle will help you to hold up the bow. Let me give you another kind of challenge here. Why don't you get the tip of the bow to go up towards the ceiling? And I want you to make circles as though you've made a yummy, yummy soup, and you're just going ahead and you're going to stir the pot. You've got to keep the soup nice and warm, and you're going to stir it around so everything gets cooked together, and give it a nice stir. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Why don't we go in the other direction now? So now try stirring up in the other direction. Fantastic. Awesome. So this week, when you're practicing, please make sure you spend a bit of time stirring the soup and also doing those windshield wipers when you're holding your bow. Awesome. Okay, so now I've been holding my bow. I feel okay. I don't need a break, but maybe you do. So if you want, take a little break. This is what I recommend you do next. I want you to take your fiddle, okay? You can hold it like we've been holding it. So take your left hand, hold it out in front of you. Awesome. So I'm just holding the bow. I'm going to keep the bow in my hand so I have it ready. Now turn your fiddle up towards the sky and place it right on your shoulder here. Hopefully that feels okay. And you've got a nice fiddle hold. You're not going to point the fiddle up. You're not going to point the fiddle downwards. You're going to have it nice in the middle like this. So it's nice in a good position for the next thing we're going to do today, which is going to be to use the bow on the fiddle. We're ready to start. Now what we're going to do is place the bow on the E string, which is the smallest string or the baby string of the fiddle. So maybe just look at your bow and make sure that the hair is coming to touch the smallest string. Now you want the bow to be touching the string in between the bridge and the fingerboard. So I'll just point to that. This is your bridge and this is your fingerboard. So you want to place the bow between those two spots right in the middle. Hopefully that makes sense. So once you've done that, I'm going to invite you to start moving your bow. So if you bring your right hand, the one that's holding the bow, and you bring your hand down towards the floor, you'll end up getting closer to the tip of the bow. Do you see that? Okay, and now let's go in the opposite direction. So this means we're going to start at the tip and go towards the frog. How does that feel? Does that feel okay? Let's try that a few times. We're all the way to the tip, and now let's go up to the frog. Excellent. So when we start going like this and we go down with our hand, this is called a down bow. And when our hand is moving up towards the sky, it's called up bow. Here's an up bow. Up bow. Down. Up. Down. Up. Down. Up. Awesome. Okay, so at first you might get a little bit of a scratchy sound, and that's really, really normal. You might be like, oh, that doesn't sound quite right. Well, try a few things. First of all, keep trying. If you press really hard into the string, if you put a lot of pressure on the string, you're going to get this sound here. Not simply the most beautiful sound. So try to put no pressure into the string. Just have the hair and the string touch and let gravity do the work. So you don't have to press when you're playing. You just need to kind of glide on top of the string. If you press a little bit, you'll notice that the sound will get a little bit louder. And sometimes you might want that, but for now, you can just keep it as a nice medium level sound. And if you notice a little bit of kind of dust looking stuff happening, that's probably some of the rosin that you put on your bow, creating a little bit of rosin dust around, and that's totally fine and it's totally normal. At the end of your playing today, you can use a little bit of a soft cloth to wipe it if you don't like the way it looks. I usually leave mine on. You can see there's a little bit of white powder on my fiddle. That's all good. Okay, so we've got the E string note there. It's going to take some time for you to get comfortable playing that. So I'm challenging you to start. You can start at the middle, go to the tip, but then I want you to go all the way from the tip to the frog, and all the way from the frog to the tip. That's hard to do. That is very hard to do. It's a lot easier to do shorter notes. Let me show you what I mean. If you go to the middle and you play just a short note and stop, that's a little bit easier to do. And let me explain to you why. It's not as much of a movement. And you'll notice when I'm playing, what happens is when I'm moving my right arm, it's the lower half of my arm that's doing all of the work or most of the work. So this part of my arm, the part where I have my shirt on, is not moving so much. It's really the part where you can see my skin, the lower part of my arm, that's moving down and up when I'm playing, okay? So one thing that you shouldn't do, try not to do this, okay? Don't move your arm backwards like this when you're playing, okay? I'm going to explain why. If you start moving your arm backwards, look what's going to happen to my bow. Do you see that I've started to play now the string, but I'm on top of the black part, the fingerboard? So I've actually gone totally off of the perfect spot, which is between the fingerboard and the bridge. You'll get a nice clean sound if you play right in the center here of those two places. So that's something you want to look out for. So let's try a little bit more of that. So you can go to the middle of the bow and let's do a down bow. That means we're going to go down with our hand and up bow. So you'll notice that it's my lower part of my arm, this part here, that's doing the moving, not this part here. Let me show you that again. Makes sense. This is going to be not easy to do. So just keep trying. Every day, spend a few minutes trying to do this. And before you do it, make sure you're holding with your nice bunny grip. So take the time to practice the way you're holding your bow, and then hold your violin properly, and then try playing that smallest string. Okay? Now, I want to challenge you even a bit more, okay? We have 4 strings on the fiddle. So we've learned how to play the smallest string, the E string. Now I think what we want to do is move to the next string, the string that's beside it. So this is where I had my bow for the E string, the smallest string. I'm going to switch to the A string, the next string. Look what's going to happen to my body when I do that. Can you tell me what part moved? I'm going back to the E, and now I'm going to the A. Do you see that? So my elbow here led the way. I need to switch to the A here. So you'll notice it kind of looks like my elbow is making the letter L. Do you see that? It's kind of making like the letter L. And then as I start to play the A note, my arm is stretching out. And then I'm going to go up. Here we go. If you heard a little bit of a different sound happen at the end. What happened was my bow started to move a little bit too close to the bridge, and it made the sound kind of shift and change, so it wasn't as clear sounding. So that sometimes happens even to me, even though I've played for a long time. So keep practicing on the A string. So now you've learned to play on the E string, which is the smallest string, or the baby string, and the one next to it, which is called the A. Awesome job today, everybody. Now, you'll remember that we started today's lesson with a review. We're plucking all 4 strings, E, A, D, and G, of the fiddle. And I want you to keep practicing doing that when you warm up. The other thing I want you to really practice is holding the bow. You can use the pencil to start off, and then make sure you practice holding the bow like you're a little bunny, your hand's a little bunny, and practice your windshield wipers, practice stirring the soup, and then once you feel comfortable holding the bow, I want you to go ahead and do some of those notes on the strings. So today we learned the E string and the A string. If you're feeling very comfortable with those, you can absolutely move on and try playing the lower 2 strings of the fiddle, the D and the G. That could be a challenge for you this week. But absolutely, next time I see you in the video lesson, we will be doing the lower 2 strings and a lot more. So I'm very excited to see you again soon. Happy practicing, happy fiddling, and have so much fun. See you soon. Bye.